Hey everybody, welcome to Maine Wedding Buzz, and today we have Kate and Keith, and we're going to be talking about photography and lots of adventures that they take with wedding couples. So welcome, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves as individual photographers.
As individuals,
And
or
how you, individuals, and how you got into this whole
I don't think you want to go to there that early on.
yeah, Kate and I have been in business together for 2 years. We started out individually. I've been had my own business doing. I'd started out in weddings and then kind of transitioned into corporate photography and some business type photography. And Kate started her own business doing events and weddings.
Well, ironically, I started more events and swore I would never do weddings. Right. And then I did a wedding. I'm like, this is great! And shocked everyone when I decided to take on more weddings.
Yeah, and so then we actually met through photography. I started a Facebook network of photographers, which has somewhere around 600 or 700 members in it. Wow. And we were doing meetups and things like that. And I had organized a couple meetups for some educational purposes, and Kate and I met at one of those. And
he doesn't remember it though.
I don't.
Just for the record.
It was very.
I remember the whole thing, and yeah, he was like the Pied Piper of the, everyone's following him around. So I just blended into the background. He doesn't remember a lick of it.
Nice.
And so then I started a smaller group of just a breakfast group to go around and have like breakfast with photographers and just chat about the industry once a month, once every other month. And that just kind of merged our lives, and here we are.
Cool. And then what brought each of you into photography? As like, what drove you to that passion of photography? Not just the wedding business, but photography.
Do you want to start?
Sure. Well,
It's like deja vu.
I got my first camera because my mom was really into photography as a hobby, and she gave me a camera when I was like 7 or something, and every family vacation was spent with me yelling at my family to get out of the picture because we would be in these really epic locations like castles in England or something, and I wanted the picture without any people. So ironically, now that's all I do. I'm like, oh, this castle doesn't look complete without a beautiful couple in front of it or something. But that kind of stemmed my interest, and I went straight from 8th grade. I had a high school that is a fantastic school for photography.
Wow.
And went all through high school studying photography, and then kept it as a back burner passion, and took classes in different schools across the country, and rotated myself into a career that didn't involve photography, and came back to it as, why am I not doing what I love?
And it's finding your passion.
Exactly.
And how about you?
My grandfather was a hardcore photography enthusiast. He did some small side job stuff too, like weddings and whatever kind of came along. So he started out as a photographer like that, and then bugging the family with taking pictures. And I was the last family member that would allow him to take pictures, as everybody else kept saying, stop taking pictures of us. And then him and I started getting into this kind of camaraderie of taking journeys up and down the East Coast doing photography. Some of my earliest memories are of him and I going to like Nubble Light, and we did an East Coast lighthouse tour where we started down in the Cape and worked our way up the East Coast trying to take as many lighthouse pictures as we could. And so it started from there, and then when my kids came along, it evolved into taking photos of them. And then I started the business, I don't know, like 10 years ago doing some sports photography, and that evolved into the corporate stuff and doing some weddings and stuff. So.
Now, when your grandfather did it, did he do it with, negatives and dark rooms and things like that? Because I that's what I remember.
Yeah.
And I wonder if people are still
showing
doing
your
that.
age now?
I am. 35, click, you put the little cube on top of it and takes the flash.
Yeah.
So is that stuff that's still done, or has everything turned to digital?
There's still some shooters that do some film stuff, and I think it's a nostalgic thing.
It's an art form at
Yeah.
this point. It's kind of a more trending.
To an extent, yeah. I think some people will kind of use that as we'll also shoot a roll of film on top of all the digital we do. We don't do that, but some people may be saying that. I just recently sold my last film camera, and I know Kate still has hers, but I just got to a point where I was tired of hearing myself say, oh, I gotta start shooting some film again, and basically just as the hobby aspect of it.
Certainly for the wedding industry, I think if it was still film-based, I wouldn't have the nerve to do it because there's no sense of reassurance. And we're in digital now where we know that when we're taking the picture, we have immediate backup to the pictures that we're taking.
Oh,
and then
that's
as soon as because we shoot to 2 cards, so it automatically reads to 2 places just in case something happens to one. And then as soon as we leave the wedding, we upload into the computer. So then there's 4 copies of it. And I need that reassurance. I think I would,
So the camera itself holds 2 disc cards? Oh, wow.
The cameras that we use.
It's actually this just kind of clicked with me, as the industry as a whole has changed as well. So back in the day when wedding photographers were shooting film, traditionally and typically, film photographer would go in there, you'd get a couple shots of the ceremony, he'd do a handful of shots of formal pictures, and then that's it. Maybe a picture of you cutting the cake and whatnot, whereas now we have the very popular, or ever popular photojournalistic style.
I was going to ask, do you put yourself in that sort of category, genre, or however they want to sell that? Or
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a buzzword.
Every single image, we make the couple, pause for 30 seconds, no smile, and, we like to old school it.
I love catching those moments sometimes that you'll see at an event. Well, I'm there for the whole thing, and I look at an event, I'm going, why aren't they taking that picture? Because it's one of those moments that you can't, where he just might kiss her on the shoulder, and they're like, oh, can you redo that? No, the moment is lost.
It's not there,
So,
one of the advantages to having two photographers is when he's getting, some other shot and something is happening where I am that, I can grab that shot, and sometimes we'll both see a moment at the same time, like on the dance floor, the cute little kid who starts doing the twist or something, and we'll both you'll see us from the opposite ends of the room, beeline it over.
Nice. And do you ever use a third shooter? I mean, I'm assuming that you're each other's second shooter, and
we always shoot together. So when you hire Kate and Keith Photography, you get Kate and Keith, and we don't have, but very rare instances, never for weddings, but if there's a small something or other, we may shoot separately, but for the most part, it's always the 2 of us. And we do have scenarios that occasionally arise where we'll bring in a third for a short period of time. If it's a extremely large event, if there's a tertiary location that needs to be covered or something like that, we will bring in a short time kind of third shooter, but for the most part 2 is usually enough.
One of the questions I always think about is, do you have legally a right to hold film or digital, and for how long? So if a client books you, how long from the day that they take it back and say, God forbid something happens, they lose it, and they move, a fire or whatever, can they call you back and they buy them back? How does that work?
It's an awesome question. Probably a 2-part one. From the legal aspect. I'm not sure we know if there's anything legally binding, but we do have something in our contract that says, we'll hold images for a certain period of time, and essentially it's always the client's responsibility
to contact you.
No,
but
it says in our contract, it actually says that it's the client's responsibility to back up the medium. So, for instance, if we had shot your wedding 5 years ago and handed you a DVD with all of your pictures on it, we're very closely soon getting to a point where computers aren't coming with DVD drives anymore, and so it's the client's responsibility to transfer that to another medium where they can have it. As far as a legal responsibility to back up and store those, it's in our contract that it's their responsibility. We do keep them, and we keep them indefinitely, but we're not legally bound to hold them. But we'll keep them as long as we can. We have them stored online with a server that backs them up in multiple locations, so they're pretty safe. But
that's a ton of photos to have to archive.
Wow,
that's incredible.
That's where you have your parents who have the storage that you just kind of move everything over into their rooms.
Yeah. It's interesting because I just read an interesting fact that kids today, especially with where photography is concerned, won't know how to actually hold an actual picture because they're quickly deleting. So as quickly as they take a photo in the moment, because they have so many, they're being deleted away. So your actual memories are being deleted because you're making room on whatever to capture more images, but you don't actually have something to hold. And I think I'm still old school that I love holding a photo in my hand and looking at it. I don't know why, but when you give your album, when a client comes in and has picked their photos, do they get an album as well, or just a flash drive into?
It depends on their desires.
Okay.
So, but we are more and more and more really, and because of what you said, we're really encouraging clients to think about this long and hard, because their initial gut instinct is to possibly think about saving a dime, or that sounds bad, saving some money, and the fact that if they get it digitally, well, they have them, they can do whatever they want. But more often than not, what we're hearing are these horror stories of clients that have their wedding, they get the photos, and then they go right back to the regular world. And they don't have the time to put their own album together. They don't have the time to go and make prints. And those photos sit there and never get viewed again. Or, you know, you can share them on Facebook, but it's just like what you said. They get kind of, the pile of pictures just gets piled up and piled up and piled up.
My brother is probably the best example of that. He just had his 10-year wedding anniversary, and I totally shamed him because they haven't done a single thing with their photos.
Wow.
And so I made them pull on their 10-year anniversary this year. I made them pull out all their photos.
Good for you. I just think
they
it's a
still haven't done
dying thing.
anything.
I think it's sad. I mean, when I go to these auction houses and you see all these photos, I sometimes I buy them because I get sad because I love collecting baby photos, and so I buy them all because I just think, well, it's somebody's baby.
You don't want that
So
to go, right?
you know, I've been accused of creating a fake family because I have all these pictures
Wait
and they're
until
not.
you get someone who walks in and says, "Hey, that's me."
But I love that, and I have a lot of young kids that work for me, and that they don't have an understanding of a photo. And
I
I'm
think
just
it's about
sad.
finding what is the right medium for you, because not everyone wants the tactile album in the old school manner. You know, you kind of think of like this old leather bound, you know, well, there's so many different options today, from, you know,
canvases
the
and things.
canvases, and even in album design, you can get a linen bound canvas and different types of paper. You can have it look really kind of more like a
There's
handmade
metal covers,
creation,
all
metal
sorts of
covers.
stuff.
There's tons of options, but also, like you said, the canvas that hangs on the wall. We even had one client who, I'm not sure how joking they were, ask about wallpaper of themselves to put up.
Well, that's new.
Yeah, I know. So it's all about finding what works for you,
Yeah.
because you want to have the images to look at. So does Facebook work for you? Not usually, but what is
Well,
it?
it's interesting because they're all doing hashtags and Instagram, and so now the wedding is covered with people just clicking away, and you're like, well, can you just wait for the ceremony part, let the photographers do this part, and just hold off on your camera? How do you feel about that new trend that's happening? You've got people popping up big
Well,
iPads, like.
We'll say, hey, do you want us to take that for you on your device? We did that all this past weekend.
Nice.
I have I kind of have a love-hate relationship with that. Like, I'm starting this collection of pictures of people taking pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
It's
you know,
actually kind of hilarious.
3 or 4 or 5 years ago, it was really kind of unique to get a picture of, you know, you get the picture of the back of their camera as they're taking a picture of the ceremony and whatnot, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool picture, and it really kind of, there's a lot of them that come out kind of cool, but I've got so many of them now, I'm like, oh, it's not unique anymore.
You should do a whole Facebook page on that.
It's something that I'm hoping is trending, and I feel like people are starting to kind of realize what they're doing to themselves, is not being present in the moment. So you have, and I mean, we're totally guilty of it as well, like getting to a restaurant and taking a picture of your food, and then getting to the beach and taking a picture of the sunset, and getting here and taking a picture of that, and you have your phone with you and you're taking a picture of crap, and now you're filling up and you got to delete stuff. And so I feel like there's a little bit of a trend coming along to get people to realize to get back to being present. And you know, Kate and Keith are there to take pictures of the ceremony, and you're there to be present at the ceremony. You're there to share in the joy and love with the couple, and I totally get wanting to take a picture. Obviously, I completely get that. But coming from being a parent and being at events where my kids were doing things, and I was very much about, oh, I gotta get pictures of this, I gotta get pictures of this, and then you realize you completely miss everything that happened because you were so caught up in taking a picture of it, you were not experiencing it at all. And so I'm hoping that this being present thing is really going to catch on.
I think the ultimate goal of why people are taking their own pictures is because sometimes, most of the time, they don't actually see the images from the wedding. And so they want to have something for themselves. And one of the ways that we do that is to connect with all the guests and say, well, obviously with the couple's approval or permission, and saying, well, okay, here's where the gallery is going to be. And you
I was
can go
gonna ask
right
that.
there and see all the pictures that we're taking. And if you want a picture taken, there's two of us, and one of us will always be with the couple. If one of us is available, we'll take your picture that you want taken.
And how long does it take to get onto that sort of gallery that they can access? Is it like the next day, the next week?
That would be pretty awesome.
I don't know.
Cut us some
I'm
slack.
learning how to
You
right
just
away.
stressed me out. We need to get back to work.
Typically, we turn around a group of photos of like teasers. They call them teasers in the industry, and I'm not really excited about that term, but that's what everybody knows them as, teasers. Anywhere from 8 to 20 photos that jump up on Facebook really quick, usually the morning after, so that everybody, or the afternoon after, so that everybody can see the photos and kind of be remembered. And that way the bride and groom have a really good shot to swap out their profile picture and these types of things. And then from that point, we have a little bit of a timeline to get the photos out to them. You know, we kind of under promise and over deliver. Is that the right way to say it? I think our contract says 8 weeks.
Okay.
Till you get all the things that we talked about, but it's usually within 4 to 6 weeks that everything is there, and some of that, depending on whether or not there's an album, depends on the proofing process.
Got it.
But
So how long does that all take? So, you know, from the initial meeting, they book you, the wedding has happened, now you get proofs to them, so now it's up to them to actually look at them and say, okay, well, I like these. And how many pictures do they actually have to look at to say, okay, this is what I like? Is it thousands? Because that's a lot.
we kind of make it as easy as we can for our clients. We have multiple galleries. We'll put them. We categorize their galleries into getting ready. What are the other ones?
Ceremony gallery, a cocktail hour gallery, a formal picture of families, formals of just the couple.
So it makes it a little bit more manageable.
It's digestible.
Yeah.
And then we'll end with a gallery that's what we call the story. So it's the highlights, if you will, the images that best represent the story of the day. And those will usually fall around 100 plus or minus, depending on the length of the wedding. And those are the images that it has its own link. So if couples prefer just to share that and not have all the other details, then they can share that link. And that's usually what the album is built from as well.
Typically, that's the resource that they use for images to build the album with. It is our kind of perception of what the day was like. So they have obviously the opportunity to go out to all those other galleries. But typically speaking, that's where they're going to find the more story-esque type of images to use for their album. So we try and make it as easy as possible because we want to get that album in their hands as quick as possible.
How far in advance does a client actually have to book you? So do you do like in our industry, we book a year in advance. So do you do the same thing?
We have clients right now that are consulting us for September
Fall of
2015
year.
weddings.
Wow.
Well, I was going to say this is the range we have. We have September 2015, a client right now that we're talking with.
Weekday, because we've been booked up weekends.
But
for
we
quite a
also
while.
have clients that we're talking with for 2017 weddings right now.
Oh, that's good.
So so there's a huge span. We every now and then we try and kind of, I don't want to say limit ourselves, but kind of shoot for a goalpost of about 20 to 22 weddings a year.
Okay.
In that range. We don't try and overbook ourselves. We don't do...
So you do 2 a weekend or...
No, we
which is
very,
one?
very rarely do 2 a weekend. The only time we do 2 a weekend is if they're very small type of weddings.
So you don't do Friday, it's just one wedding. Wow.
We like
Usually.
the idea behind that is that we try and give a lot of personalized service to each couple. So it's not just we're showing up on your wedding day and taking pictures for 6 or 8 hours. We're giving you a lot of personalized face-to-face time, even well before that day ever comes. And
Oh, that's right, with the engagement session too.
Yeah,
do you do that as well? Is that part of the
engagement
package?
session.
Okay.
It's always complimentary because we believe that it's a really great tool to become more familiar with the couple, understand who they are so that we can better portray their personality come wedding day, but also get them comfortable in front of a camera, because a lot of couples have never had professional pictures taken.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a win-win for both. And in the rare cases when a couple isn't available for a engagement shoot, like last weekend, we met up for a hike with a couple who lives in Boston and went on a 3-4 hour hike with them.
Wow.
And yeah, that was
Just gives
awesome.
us an opportunity to really engage with them, and we feel like that's our opportunity when it comes wedding day, to really know who we're dealing with, and to get that kind of emotion and personality out of them, because they know who it's Kate and Keith. It's not that photographer that we don't know.
Yeah.
And
So
so
you got a little bit more.
yeah, we feel like that's how we get that really personal.
And I've said this before, I think it's really interesting when you put the order of, venue is always, because you need your venue to get married, you need your food, and you need your photographer. And out of those three, you spend the most time with, and then you sort of end it with the photographer, because you have still another month and a half with them after everything's said and done. So you have the longest relationship with the client, and nobody else does. And so I always try to put it in order of importance of when you're breaking down how you should do it. And I don't put catering second because it's important, because I'm a caterer. I put it there because you need the food. And so you have to eat that day.
Somebody wants to
and,
eat.
and you need the
Yeah.
venue. So venue, food, photography, and then everything sort of
Are you
works
sure the
down
bar
like that.
service isn't up there somewhere?
For some people. For some.
For the guests.
So I don't know
up
how
there.
you feel about that, because I do think that you are with them longer than the rest of us.
I think maybe our philosophy is a little bit different from the industry standard, and that's simply because we have a much more personalized connection with our clients, and we don't even like using the word client, I guess, because we have so much more of a personal relationship. And like this past spring, we always have a shoot in DC around the apple blossom or cherry blossom time, and we had 5 couples, 3 past couples and 2 from this year that are in the area. And so we just did like a whirlwind tour of visiting past couples and catching up with current ones, and really we maintain contact. And it's
really
not
sweet.
because it's required or anything other than we enjoy who we work with.
Yeah, we really kind of get that connection with the client, or I don't know, whatever you call them.
The happy couple.
Our happy couples, because the first thing that clicked with me when you said you stay in contact with them for a month or 6 weeks after, is we actually stay in contact with them for much longer. 2 of the couples that we went out to and chatted with in DC are much further beyond than that, and we're able to hook up with them, have coffee with them, chat about what's going on with them. That's how we know that one couple is now pregnant. Congratulations to Sarah and Colby, and that they haven't printed their pictures yet.
Nice.
So,
Print your pictures.
so we're that's Sarah and Colby right there, and so we're able to
Guilt
give
trip
them a
them a
hard time
little.
about it.
Well, it's interesting. I've tried to do the same thing, and I have in the back of my many things that I have a book title. It's called Temporary Friend: A Caterer's Guide to the Perfect Day, because clients sometimes, for us in my industry, are temporary friends, and I have Ruben sometimes pushes me back and says, you can't get a hug at the end, her parents are there. I said, but I've spent so much time with them in that year too, and then the day of, I'm there the whole day, that I want the hug goodbye.
Absolutely.
And then I feel like Father of the Bride when the planner is running to get the hug, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be that person. And so I sometimes do feel that I become just a temporary friend, and so then I've gotten to the point where now when I hear that they've had a baby, I always send along a blue elephant
I think
or a
that's-
little thing.
I think
because
that's
it's
totally
a,
appropriate.
it's a little, because now they've created a new life within this marriage that you somehow, we all have a part of it.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but I do feel that it's a
That's
special
totally
thing
appropriate.
they let us into.
And yeah, it's something. I mean, emotionally, I don't know. I can't speak for Kate or for you, but emotionally, I feel like that hug is like that's something I would do for family and friend, and I feel like I feel like our bride and groom is family and friend at that point, and even for the occasions where we don't maintain contact at long term, definitely at that point, the whole that temporary friend concept is huge because you're very emotionally involved at that point.
And it's interesting because we did a wedding this past Saturday, and the bride was my bookkeeper's daughter, and she also had worked for me as well. And so we've known her since I moved to town, 8 years. And she was coming back up the aisle, and I was briefing her on where she had to go for photos with the photographer because the limo was there to pick her up and take her somewhere else. And tears are strolling down her face because she's so excited. And I caught myself doing what her dad should have done and just wiping the tears away from her face. And I'm thinking, that wasn't my moment to take, but it was just the three of us.
It's okay, the photographer can Photoshop Dad's face
well,
onto
she didn't catch us,
yours.
thank God. But I thought, and I flashed forward to when my daughter gets married. I'm like, I wonder if that's what I'm going to do. You know, and I put myself in that situation. So I hear what you're saying about having those relationships. And so that answered a question too, because you go to DC, you're going to Italy, you're going to Aruba, so you do travel, and that's really wonderful that your clients take you along for the journey.
Yeah, I think we kind of make that convenient for them because traveling is one of our huge passions. And so we don't make it difficult for a client to get us. You know, we are going to Oswego, New York in the end of October, and that was a hang up for our client as far as, well, we really want you, but you know, getting you out there, how much does it cost? And for us, we're not trying to make money on travel.
Yeah.
That's just kind of one of those things. We don't want to kind of make that a barrier to entry for us. So we make it as simple as possible because we want to be there for our couples, but we also want to travel. We want to experience Oswego, New York, and we want to be able to get out there and enjoy the area as well as be there for the couple. So it's not something like they're going above and beyond. It's something that we kind of work together to make it happen because it's a passion of ours.
And unfortunately or fortunately, my family is all over the world. Half my family's in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
So any opportunity to be out there, to be with my family, is a huge bonus.
Wow. So Hawaiian, you chose Maine. I said this, I'm Cuban and I'm here and it's
I
cold.
know. What were we thinking? So we do a lot of
I
Hawaii
mean, it is
in the winter.
beautiful. Maine is beautiful and I love it here and it's home. How do you deal with inclement weather, speaking of snow?
Oh, we love it.
Love
Do
inclement
you really?
weather.
Okay.
If our
Absolutely,
clients
yeah.
are up for it, we're up for
See?
it.
Awesome. Speaking of inclement weather,
Yeah,
because what I noticed this past weekend, there was the rain, and the wedding was at 4. And what did it do? It rained from 4 to 5. So we held back. Are you okay with that? If we decide to hold back, that doesn't push your timeline at all. I mean, you
It's
know,
not
we don't
about
have a
us.
timeline,
It's about
yeah.
the couple.
she
so-
wanted to be married outside, so we
Yeah.
waited and the guests were beautiful about waiting.
We're absolutely 100% for getting married wherever the couple wants to, but definitely outside if at all possible.
A couple chose their venue usually based on the outside. They didn't choose it based on the indoor alternative. So if we can make that happen in any way possible, we're going to do that.
And photos come out fine, because I remember it was drizzling a little bit, and I saw the photographer had a like a scarf over whatever the camera lens. Was that to help her capture images or to block rain and raindrops?
Probably the rain,
Probably the
Okay.
rain.
but we
It would
carry
have to be-
umbrellas with us,
Okay.
bridal umbrellas.
Got it,
So
okay.
for the bridal party and for us as well. And
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be raining pretty hard for us to
Say switch it
to
inside.
stress. But to stress about the camera gear because
Got it.
the cameras are actually weather resistant. But we always have. We carry a set of bride and groom umbrellas. We carry 2 sets, so we have 2 white and 2 black. They're very kind of nice, elegant umbrellas. Sometimes the rain has stopped and we just use them as props, but other times they're very convenient to actually protect from rain. And I mean, it's got to be pretty bad for us to say, okay, it's time to move in, and for all the reasons that Kate said, but also for the opportunity to get some pretty wonderful memories. I was almost going to say some pretty great epic photography because it does create some great stuff because, you know, for instance, everybody's gone to Mount Washington and got married.
Yeah.
But when you toss a little bit of Mother Nature in there,
A
it makes
little
for
bit.
some
Okay,
really
our
awesome
last
memories.
one at Mount Washington was basically hurricane.
Nice.
And the bride,
Oh my God.
Meredith, she ends up loving the picture of her holding on to her veil as it's like flying off into the distance.
It's like one of those cartoon pictures where she's straining into the wind, holding the veil, and the
Yeah.
veil's blowing
Wow.
behind her.
And she had to yell out, "Can we do this somewhere else?" and we reset up everything
Too funny.
in the alternate location. But they love at a good way.
At all our weddings,
all
they're
of our
always
weddings. We
happy.
hear horror stories about people who aren't happy, but we haven't experienced that. But not only is everyone happy, but it's the time when the couple actually has the majority of their family and friends in one location present. It can be a really emotional thing because how often does that happen in your life when you have all the people that you care about in one place? Hopefully everyone's able to make it, but and so to be in that moment is a really, it's kind of awesome, you know, that a couple would ask you to be there to be there for that and to be there to capture it, and I love meeting all these people. There's some really, really awesome
Interesting
people
yeah.
there, yeah, and they get
It's
more
almost like a
interesting
play.
as the night goes
it's
on.
like a bunch of interesting characters now gathered in this room, and now you're seeing the
Totally.
whole thing play out.
Yeah.
So I see that too. And for you?
Yeah, and in a general sense, as far as what we do, my favorite part would be very consistent with hers, as far as the meeting new people and making new friends is really like why I do this. Why I do photography is meeting new friends, the traveling and all that kind of stuff. Really my favorite part about about what we do. But as far as wedding day itself, I think my favorite part of the day is groom prep. So Kate does the
bring that up.
Kate does the photos for bride prep, and I do the photos for groom prep.
He has way too much fun. I am very envious of
Brides and the bridesmaids take what? I don't know, 2 hours, 3
Hours.
hours, 4 hours to
Yeah.
get ready. Grooms take about 7 minutes
Yeah.
to get ready, and the rest of the time we're having a blast.
They're just
we're playing
drinking.
horseshoes, drinking beer. We had I had one wedding and we were doing office chair races up and down the halls of the hotel.
By the time we
Oh, we're having a
reconvene
blast.
at
These are my
ceremony
buddies.
time,
Yeah.
they have inside jokes already.
Nice.
And I mean, I love the time with the brides as well, but it's definitely of a different
different,
nature.
yeah.
It's more of an artistic, gorgeous, amazing,
This-
emotional process.
This one, it's always something. We had one wedding where the groomsmen were all musicians, and it's just like this impromptu jam session happens. And I'm sitting here laughing the whole time because I know she's taking pictures of makeup and crap. And,
Oh, hey now, come on.
and I'm
You're so right, though. It's so
I'm taking
true.
pictures of this epic jam session with everybody's like, you know, it's really kind of cool with like scotch and like everything's really awesome.
Cigar bar, the whole
yeah,
9 yards.
it's excellent. And she's taking pictures of makeup
You
and
know,
stuff.
we have fun moments too. Thank you.
Little blush gets spilled. That's so
It's
funny.
all part of the story. It's epic. It's all part of the story in the end when I'm going through and looking at all the photos and I see the stuff that she's doing and I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened.
Yeah.
And she's on the same side. She's like, oh my gosh, that happened. And when we do that, I think about how awesome it's going to be for the bride and groom to sit there and say, oh, you guys were doing this and oh, you were doing that. And I kind of like have this like romantic idea of like a little tear coming down the bride's face as she sees him writing down his vows. And so, yeah.
And it's funny because how you meet people. I met the both of you because we did a style shoot at a property, and then the photos came back, and I'm in love with them. I really am. And actually, I sent that photo on to one of the guys who designed my edible spoon, and they're really excited. And so I belong to this group called the International Caterers Association. So I got a lot of great feedback from your photo, and I'm like, I can't take the credit for the photo. I could take the credit for the photo, but for the food. But it was really just really nice to work. What I liked about the whole thing is that there was no ego coming in. So you guys didn't come in and then the big ego comes in. And Preston Bailey's VP for his company wrote this really interesting article about that we need to somehow get back to the basics and get over ourselves and come into an actual event saying, this isn't about me.
Yes, I love
It's
that.
about the client.
Absolutely.
And you know, then everything can work in harmony. But when people come in and I call them renegades, and you don't know where they're at, and they're like, I have a timeline, or you know, now there's a lot of companies that are multitasking everything, and you're like,
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, good for you. So,
I think, I mean, that's the point of the whole day. It's about the couple, and it's
Yeah.
not just something for vendors to remember and realize, for the guests too. Because, you know, you'll see guests who kind of get caught up in things and forget that, but it's about the couple.
it's about the couple.
And this is their day, and we're all here as actors in their play, and they're running the show.
And if you want to see that style shoot, it's on our Facebook page as well. So you can look at that, and they're beautiful pictures. I thought they came out stunning, especially the outside
you. It
photos.
was great to work with you.
And the table, because I remember it had a couple, and it just was perfect. I looked at that table,
That
and I was
table,
looking
oh my God.
We have a
for
few secrets on that
Table's
table.
crazy.
it looked spectacular. It really did. I love the way it looked. I love the way the food came out. It just came out really, really well, because I have to tell you, they did this whole shoot, and we laced the table with this floor to ceiling windows with sun just coming out, and it just looked intimate. It really did. I thought it just beautiful job. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Actually, I used it as my header for
Awesome.
Oh, yay.
the Facebook page because I
Great.
love the way it came
Very
out.
awesome.
So the colors, the way it looks, and so everybody has.
Next
has
time
commented.
after something like that, we're all sitting down and eating some of that
Yeah.
food 'cause it looked amazing.
Not when it sits out too long,
I know.
especially for a shoot. Do you still get excited about being published? I mean, I'm assuming you're published in magazines and things like that. So do you get excited when you see your work somewhere?
I get more excited for the couple because
Yeah?
it's so fun for them. Like one of our couples, we got published in an Australian magazine. And
Really?
It's like,
Oh my
that's so
God.
cool. And they're like tickled about that.
That's awesome.
And so it's just fun. It's fun because you end up kind of revisiting that day.
Yeah.
And so it's fun for them to feel like it was something bigger than just a one day, kind of thing. And
point.
then we can share that moment again with them because when we submit for publication, it's not about us, it's about us and them.
Yeah.
And so it's another kind of step in the process through that.
That kind of goes to the whole ego thing. I feel like for us, we have this, and it's obviously similar with you, we have this feeling that I always relate it back to a time where I was buying a house and the mortgage broker was there, and this whole process for me was very an emotional thing. You're buying a house and everybody knows who's bought a house. It's like this crazy process. It's horrible. It's very, very stressful. And the mortgage broker was like very much like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, it's time for me to punch out and go home. And like my whole life is in a moving truck and
Yeah.
everything like that. And I don't ever want my bride and groom to think that this is just a job for me. I don't want our couples to think that when we leave, we go home, punch out, and go back to our regular lives. It's not like that for us. For us, it's very much an emotional thing for us. We know just how important this day is for them, and it's never like that for us, and we want to make sure they realize that this is very important to us, and obviously not as important as it is to them, but it's huge for us, and we want them to know that. So
There's
that
not
whole
really-
ego thing you mentioned is it's all about collaboration for us. It's making sure that it's great for them, and if we get published, then that's wonderful, but it's mostly wonderful for them.
And that's one of the things. I mean, I love seeing ourselves published, but I also do the same thing. I love it brings back that moment. You relive it. There's a particular couple that has been in 6 magazines, and I love them to death. I really do. But every time I open a magazine, I'm like, but it brings me back to that moment
Right.
in 2013. I can tell you exactly when, where, the whole thing. And I love seeing it, but the flashbacks are cool because
Yeah.
then I'll remember little things or something that happened that day with my daughter that I connected with that wedding. And so those things are important to me. And sometimes egos sometimes can get crazy. And
Sure.
I love the fact that they get excited when they see it and they call and they're like, "Did you see me in the wedding magazine?" And we already know. And they're like so excited because,
awesome.
and I'm excited for them because it's like, it's a step more for them about their
Right.
wedding because now a year later, there's more of their wedding, and so now they're buying 10 magazines to send to every grandmother, grandpa, and so that's what I love.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
after the
excellent
wedding,
for
it's
them.
so easy to get caught up in back to reality and everyday life, and stuff gets
Yeah.
crazy. And before you know it, it's like your 10-year anniversary, and you're completely disassociated from that day. And that's why we try and push towards an album or a gallery wrap or something, so that you don't need a magazine
yeah.
print to come out to remind you of, oh my God, that was real.
This happened.
Right.
So before we go, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, you have all that stuff. So
Yeah, I mean,
do.
we could do it quickly by just saying Kate and Keith Photography, but I am. Our Instagram is more about our dog.
We have a business Instagram,
Right,
and
that's
then we
much
have
more
our personal
professional.
ones
Nice,
that are more
nice.
kind of integrated with the photography we do, us as people, and the dog.
Nice.
It's basically all the dog.
Yeah, so kateandkeithphotography.com has the links to all this, and then my Instagram is Keith_Tharp, and hers is Kate Harris Photography.
My old business.
And
name.
you'll have everything too at the end of the show, as always. And then, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Check out their Facebook, join them on Facebook, look for them on Instagram. And as always, thanks for joining in and watching another episode of Maine Wedding Buzz. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.